Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is another Design Cuts live session, and I'm joined by our good friend, Addie Hanson. Addie, what are you going to be teaching us today?
I am going to be showing you how to make fruit clip art in Procreate. So you'll be able to completely export everything from Procreate. You don't have to hop between programs. And I'm using Lisa's Effortless Gouache brushes for Procreate, which I always gush about everything that Lisa does, but like these are phenomenal. I'm so excited.
Amazing. Well, Addie, over to you if you're happy to share your screen, please.
So what I'm working in right now is the canvas that comes with the pack. I believe there's two categories of canvases that come with. So there's textured and smooth. And I'm working in one of the textured ones because I want to show you how to maintain that depth of texture in the clip art without the background. So that's part of this. And I'm working in the large size, which I think a lot of people, when starting clip art, wonder what size they should paint it to like best serve their customers. And when you're doing, when you're working digitally and working on an iPad that might have layer limits, that's really going to be your main constraint. But this large size, I think it's like an A4 size maybe. But that's typically the gauge that I use, is to make elements about the size of a standard piece of paper. If your customers are doing something way bigger, they'll probably like seek out something specialized for that. But the standard piece of paper is a good gauge, I think, for most applications. So that's the first thing. And the layer has the texture stack and then one layer below, and I'm just going to add in a few more layers to work on here. And I'm going to start off with the messy semi-wet brush. These brushes have there's like a mix again with textured and more smoother ones, and I love the really messy ones. I like smudging with them. It's just very forgiving. So I'm going to start with a peach. And
ooh, look at the texture already.
Yeah, you can. It's hard with the white. You can't see the paper texture, but it just immediately comes through as you start to layer in the brush strokes.
I feel like this is going to be such a fun, colorful session, and I'm getting good vibes in the chat today. Everyone's very active, very excited to see you today, Addie.
I loved seeing the flood of fruit too.
I know, we definitely got our 5 a day.
Okay, so I shared the color palette, but what I'm going to do is this trick of using the color selection with the paper texture to choose slightly darker tones. So you can see as I go over the paper texture, it will pick up both the highlights and the shadows of the color that I'm over. And so if I want to add shadows, this is just a really easy, fast way to get tonal colors. And especially with this more messy look, we're going to be blending some. It doesn't have to be limited to a super strict palette. I'm going to be smudging with the smudgy rough paint brush. Can you hear me okay? I feel like I was moving further and further away from the mic as I was talking.
You can hear you fine.
Is it fine? Okay.
I was saying before we started today, Addie's rocking a professional setup and putting me to shame.
No, I got a new microphone because I got jealous of your new microphone.
Oh, that's how it is. You're one-upping me. I'm going to have to upgrade and try and one-up you next time.
I think we both upgraded from the same microphone before, and your sound it sounded so much better. I had to.
Yeah, coming soon, the Addie and Tom radio show. Silky smooth tones.
I mean, you have a voice for radio. I don't know about me so much.
Everyone hates their own voice. Although, fun tip, the best way to get over that is have a podcast, because then you get so used to your own voice, it doesn't sound weird anymore.
I believe it. I'm thinking of your Biz Buds with Mike, where you do your accents.
No, let's not go there.
Oh, okay, all right. I'm just gonna add a small stem. Again, this is just super simple. So I was painting with the messy semi-wet brush. I'm gonna stay on that for all of this and just do a small stem here. And
Amy asks, are you smudging with the same brush, Addie?
oh, I'm smudging with the smudgy rough paint brush.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that you can layer in messy strokes and it still all comes together super nicely. Choosing a darker color. And this brush is also super pressure sensitive for opacity, and it gets these, let me go off under the white here. If you press really hard, you get that thick paint, but lightly, it allows you to sort of blend out as you paint. And it has this almost bristly look. So you can, a lot of the brushes have that in this set.
I'm always amazed. It doesn't take that many strokes just to look so, it has so much depth to it.
Yeah,
Like it really builds up beautifully.
I swear it's the brushes. The coolest thing about these is they have these hard edges that look like, let me pick my original color here. I don't know if you can see, like they have these slightly dark edges that looks like it's like layered and there's a small shadow from that individual brush stroke. It's incredible.
Well, that mimics how paint dries, right?
Yeah.
You get those hard edges.
Yeah. All right, so now I'm adding in a little bit of highlight here, and I'm going to throw in some yellow.
Cool. By the way, hello, I can see some fresh faces today. So we've got some long-time design cutters, but also maybe some people that are a little bit more new to these live sessions. I hope that you enjoy it. And do remember, you get the replay after this. So you can watch back in your own time. And if you get stuck with anything, do ask questions. We're here to help. And also, they're a very friendly bunch. So if you are new, we have like the nicest, sweetest community in the world, and they'll look after you well. So don't be afraid. Say hi. Meet some new people in the chat as well.
Your community is truly the best.
I think they are. I know we're biased, but they are amazing.
Well, and I love when I come in and I see, but like before the session starts, all of these familiar faces and names. And I always get very nervous before the session. So it makes me feel better when I recognize people.
So this is cool. This is something that my art teacher always used to show me, where you're putting colors that you wouldn't naturally expect, right? And it just builds up such a nice variation.
Yeah, and that's something that I've learned as I've gone. Nothing is ever one solid color as expected. Even when you look at white, there's often so much other colors to it. And it might have like a cast or a hue of a certain kind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember doing portraits and suddenly I'd find myself putting like purple into someone's skin tone, which you would never think of, right? When you're a kid, you're like, oh, that's, one color as a skin tone, but it's not. It's all these subtle variations and light and so on.
Okay, so now I'm going to add some details, which is one of the fun things about gouache. When you paint it, it dries super quickly, and then you can layer on really rich, thick color on top. So you'll often see like white stand out. I feel like that's one of the biggest differences, is that you can layer that color in. There's not as much transparency. So that's one of the biggest differences from watercolor. So I like to do just like bolder details. And there's these line work brushes in the set. So I'm going to use the round streaky wet brush for some of this.
So talk us through, what are you doing here? Is this going to be a kind of shading technique that you're smudging, or is it a detailing thing?
Yeah, so I would say I'm not actually going to smudge it. I'm going to leave that as is. It's just a abstracted shade, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
I like doing, let's see, I'll choose a lighter green for this. I like doing just like, maybe not that one, just like weird splotches and things. Because again, it's like that thick layered look. And so I almost think of it as like a vector adjacent when you think about what it's going to look like. You can for sure do some of that messy smudging and get that blended look, but because the idea is this layered paint, you can also just do some really cool. I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to say. Just like standout high contrast details like this,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, that leaf has a lot of depth, I have to say.
Okay, so super simple. I'm going to leave that at that for now.
I love
And
that. It's really stylized. Like, I can imagine this in a kid's book or something like that, maybe.
that's definitely the vibe I was going for. More naive handed art, I would say.
Did you ever read James and the Giant Peach growing up?
Yes, I did. I loved
I used
that.
to love that book.
All of Roald Dahl's books, but yes, that
Yeah,
one.
I voraciously read, I think, every book he ever wrote growing up,
Yeah.
multiple times over.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that just takes me back. And the oh my gosh, what's the illustrator's name who always
Oh,
worked with
Quentin
him?
Blake.
Yes. Yes. So iconic. So now, depending on the brushes that you used, you might have some transparency. And so I'm going to double check that by turning off the canvas and then the background. And I'm working in dark mode, so it's a little easier to see. But for this is pretty opaque. I don't have to worry about any transparency with this one. If you're doing watercolor with this technique, then you might need to fill in the background with some white, and I'll show you how to do that on another piece. So I'm going to walk through the steps then of making this into actual clip art. To maintain that paper texture, what we're going to do is select the layer contents. So you can either tap the layer to bring up the side menu and select, and that will create that, or you can use the shortcut of 2 fingers pressing and holding on the layer, and then you'll see the selection mask comes up. Once that is selected, you can use 3 fingers to swipe down, which will bring up the copy and paste menu. And then from here, you're going to hit copy all, and then 3 fingers down once more and paste. And what this will do is paste what you selected with the canvas directly on top. And so that has all of the texture. If you can see, that's the clip art piece that we pasted. And then that's the original painting layer underneath. So if you can see that difference come through.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you can export later on, but that's how you create an individual element of clip art.
That's so cool. I just want to check with everyone watching live. Let us know in the live chat. Is that clear? Because I feel like that's quite a essential, quite a pivotal technique for this session. So is that clear? Or would you like Addie to maybe go through one more time? Let us know in the chat.
Yeah, and I can definitely go through with the other ones. Like I said, with the transparency one, I'll show you some troubleshooting for that. But the other tip that I wanted to be sure to say is that make sure that you do the selection of the layer, because if you don't, if you just do the swipe down, copy all, swipe down, and paste, it pastes the background. So by doing the selection, you then are isolating that piece.
Cool. Addie, we've got a few requests for a kind of replay of that. Would you mind just demonstrating the correct way one more time? I just want to make sure everyone's got this down. So step one is...
So on the layer that your element is on, you're going to select the layer contents. You can do that by tapping to bring up the side menu and choosing select there. Or you can use 2 fingers on the layer to press and hold. And it'll pop up with the mask. And then from here, we're going to use 3 fingers to swipe down. And on the copy and paste menu, hit copy all.
Okay, so just to go super slow here. So it's either select it via that option in the layer menu, or 2 fingers and swipe up, was it, to do the selection in the mask?
2 finger press and hold.
Press and hold, sorry, to do the selection with the mask. And then it's 3 fingers once you got that selection mask down.
Yes, 3 fingers
and then copy
down. And copy all. You don't want to necessarily do copy, because that will only copy the layer.
Copy all, okay.
So copy all will copy the paper texture, and it will maintain all of the blend modes of the textures, and then the background layer. So it will all function. It copies exactly what you see. If that makes sense.
Copies the data of every layer within that selected shape.
Yeah, as though it were flattened.
Okay. Yeah. So that, I think that's such a crucial piece. So yeah, copy all, everyone.
Yes. Copy all. And then, oh, now I just, I hit that without it live. Let me go through here.
Okay.
Copy all. And it will automatically close your selection once you hit copy all. And then 3 fingers to swipe down again and paste. And that will bring it directly above the layer that you're working on.
Amazing. And now it's isolated. It has all of the correct opaqueness. It's got all of that texture overlay all in one single object layer.
Yeah. And so then if I hide all my other stuff, you know, it doesn't have any background. You don't have to do any kind of cleanup. It's ready to be exported and saved as a PNG to be used as
cool.
Clipart.
Let us know again in the chat. Hopefully everyone's clear now. But I think that was really, really a good breakdown. So is everyone clear now?
I think also if the 3 finger swipe down, if you don't remember that step, I believe under the actions menu, so under this wrench here and under add, there's copy canvas that will work as well. So if you don't want to do the shortcut forever, for whatever reason, there is that. Okay, so let's do a lemon. All right, I'm going to switch back to actually, let's do the flat, messy, semi-dry brush. Show you some more of these. I thought about, I always feel like I'm in a comfort zone with fruits. Oh, this looks kind of orange on screen.
It's right. It's like a sun-blushed lemon, maybe.
A little overripe, maybe.
We had a lemon tree on the balcony of our old apartment, and it turns out that lemons really don't like British climate. Because this poor resilient lemon tree was there holding on for dear life, but just slowly dying in front of our eyes a little more each day.
Did it ever produce fruit?
So it was one of those, when we bought it, it already had some lemons, and then the lemons kind of slowly died. Apart from there was one that was the size of like an American football, it seemed. It was like the biggest lemon I've ever seen. And that was there like braving the elements, but even that eventually fell off and didn't fare well.
Oh man, I had looked into getting a lemon tree at one point, and I lived in Wisconsin at that point, so we had longer winters. We would have had to get like growing lights and really
That's
like
it.
set up a whole greenhouse, basically. Wasn't going to happen.
Get a sunbed just for your lemon.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got the base color. We're doing some, broad shading, highlights and shadows. And you've got that thin, almost rim light or rim shadow at the top edge, right? Just to help with that form.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm smudging now. I'm just kind of blending, but I'm also kind of going a little outside of the lines here. You can see I'm embracing that texture. This is still the smudgy rough paintbrush. And I find I use this more for smudging than for painting, but it has just beautiful texture. So I'm using this to kind of push out some of the color. All right. And let's create a second one here and put them on a branch. What I'm going to do is duplicate my lemon and transform it and warp it into a second one to kind of speed things up. So I tap the transform tool and I'm going to keep it on uniform to shrink it down a little bit and then flip it horizontally. And then I'm tapping warp and I'm just going to play with the shape a little bit.
So this is a good one from Marie. When I think of Clipart, I think of vector graphics. Is there a way to vectorize or ensure that Clipart made in Procreate is resizable without losing resolution?
That is such a good question. The only way to vectorize it would be to bring it into a vector program. And I think my key answer there would be paint as large as you can, because you can always size down, but you sizing up is where you would run into the resolution issues.
Mm-hmm. We actually have a Bill, community member Bill, left a great response in the comments here and says, with a style like Gouache, it's pretty difficult to create a vector version without creating a huge file, as it needs so many vector shapes to mimic the subtle gradients. So one suggestion is just using a super big canvas, which should accommodate most of your needs.
Yeah, for sure. And I've vectorized watercolor, which is basically what it ends up doing is creates a vector shape for what would be each pixel. And so it really is a huge file and kind of becomes unusable because of how heavy it is.
Yeah. Although who knows, give it like 5-10 years, I'm sure computer processing power, everything can be vectorized.
So when I warp things like this, what I like to do is go back and forth and make them different enough so that you can't tell. And warp is a really good one to use, but if you also want to maintain the edge texture, I love Liquify for that. That's under the adjustments menu, and I frequently use that because it allows you to maintain, especially here I have these rough edges. I can just push that in and it doesn't, rather than using like the smudge tool, it doesn't mess it up.
Is this leaf on a different layer, just to clarify?
It is. So I've added a new layer above both of the lemons, and I'll keep things separate until the composition is done, and then merge them to make the clip art.
Cool.
But I'm going to stay on the same layer to draw the branch.
A few people in the questions asking where to get these brushes. As ever, it is the shiny green button below this live stream or in the description link as well. You can check them out. They're from the wonderful Lisa Glanz and just, yeah, super realistic, according to Addie.
Yes. I really think, I mean, all of her brushes are amazing. They just keep getting better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's really, like, she's always been amazing, but she's really grown and kind of come into her own as a brush creator.
So what I like about this messy style is that you can kind of, it's like painting and sketching at the same time. So you'll see I'm doing lots of little strokes and sort of feels like I'm making it up as I go. But because the brush strokes layer so well together, it looks more intentional.
Really therapeutic to watch. Yeah, Bill says, oh, this is a question from Amy, actually. How do you fix smudgy edges of the peach?
Oh, as in like if you smudge outside and it's like that, I'm guessing is the question.
Yeah, I guess just, if your edge isn't quite right, how would you go and refine it?
Using an eraser, using the eraser tool set to a brush that you are using can often work. So if I'm painting with the flat, messy, dry, you can press and hold on the eraser tool and it'll start erasing with that same brush. And I'll zoom in so you can see some of this texture a little more. It'll erase and still maintain some of that consistency.
Beautiful. And Katie asked, do you lose quality of the second lemon by transforming it?
So yes, there is definitely some quality loss, especially if you are doing a lot of transforming changes. But, and I guess I maybe didn't talk through this part so much, but after I got the shape transformed, I went in and smudged more. I added some more brush strokes, and that will pretty much cover up any resolution loss from that.
Amazing.
Okay, I'm at that point where I could futz for forever because there's something about these leaves that's not quite right. But let me go in and add some shade.
Talk us through your headspace. What doesn't feel right about them? Because it's hard for me to say. In fact, actually, here's my question. Often as an artist, I will feel like something's not right, but I'm not good enough to know what it is. So I get really frustrated. I'm like, what is it? Like, what's up?
For sure. So the thing that's standing out to me here is this leaf. I think I need to remove some of this bump. I was going to do a twisted leaf, and at one point I had this like curved up portion here, and then I decided that I didn't like that. But really, it just doesn't look symmetrical, and most leaves are symmetrical. So to change that, I guess I will go in with the eraser tool and just decisively cut that off. And that's where I'm very glad to be working on a different layer from my lemons. But I do think, when you find something is off, sometimes rather than sitting and trying to rework it over and over, you just get rid of it and start over, because that iteration will teach you more than trying to make something that you don't like into something that you do like, if that reasoning makes sense. It's like that challenge where the professor sent out students to take one great picture or like 50 different pictures, and the students who took 50 pictures learned so much more and had better results.
I love that example.
Yeah, by framing that many shots and doing it over and over, that repetition, you learn more. But it can be hard when you've invested time. That's like sunk cost. You've invested time into a piece and like you think you can save it.
Yeah, we've all been there. Not saying this is the case here. This is beautiful, but I've had pieces where the more I work on it, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no.
And you stare at it for so long too that you can't trust your own eyes after a while.
It's amazing what coming back the next day does for that, though.
Yeah. Or just getting a second opinion, any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm switching to the round streaky wet brush, and I'm going to add in some of those abstracted details. And I'm using the color picker to choose the darker green.
Speaking of a second opinion, by the way, if you're not familiar, I highly recommend checking out our Procreate Facebook group, which is, I think, about to hit 10,000 members, which is crazy.
Wow.
Great place to share your work, get feedback, and get those all-important second opinions if you become a bit blind to your own piece. So yeah, definitely check it out. It's run by the lovely Kat, who you can see in the live chat here with the cat avatar, who does a great job over there.
It really is like the most supportive Facebook group I've ever been in.
Oh, that's great to hear. I really like this shading detailing technique that you use.
Thanks.
It's not quite cross-hatching, but it's like, I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, and it just kind of gives like the hint of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very stylized, very intentional.
I just need a pure white. Make sure I'm on the right layer. I am going to go in and add a shadow here, but I kind of wanted to discuss because with Clipart, I always think of wanting to make the piece as versatile as possible. And so by adding a shadow, you might be making it less so. So if I were to make clip art with this shadow that I'm adding, I might want to do save a version without. Because depending on how the customer wants to rotate it or orient it on the page, the shadow might not make sense. Or if they're pairing it with other clip art pieces, having a restriction like that could be a make or break deal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where options are always a good thing. So I'm adding a multiply layer in between the two lemons, and I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that and put one in between the branch and the lemons as well. And then I'm going to use this purple color and the large dry brush. And then switching to the layer in between the lemons, do a bit of the same. And this is really just a hint to help visually separate the two.
Mm-hmm. Maria says the smudge is like magic.
It really is. And this is such a good smudger. I love that the smudge retains just like enough texture to make it all look cohesive. I am going to add just a tinge of green to both of the lemons. And then I'm going to smudge this out. Okay. Oh, maybe a little more. Okay, so now to make this the clip art, because this is all of the separate layers, I'm going to merge them all together. And I have a random weird dot here that I'm going to select and move off. And now I want to double check the transparency of this. And here you can see there is a little bit of transparency under this lemon. So to combat that, I'm going to create a layer mask. Oh, turn back on everything. And what that will do is just create a white copy of the layer, and only that, nothing else, that we can then flatten with the image. So what I'm doing is swiping to the left on the layer and hitting duplicate. And then on the lower of these two, I'm going to use two fingers to swipe right to alpha lock. You can also tap to bring up the layer menu and tap alpha lock. And then with alpha lock turned on, we're going to choose 100% white. And so you can go to the value slider and make sure that the saturation is set at 0 and the darkness is set to, or brightness is set to 100%. So I'm on the true white. And then back in my layers panel, make sure that alpha lock is for sure turned on. I'm going to tap the layer to bring up the side menu and then tap fill layer. And that, if I hide everything else, you can see then it's just like a white filled copy of that. There is still a little bit of transparency, and it's picked up some of the multiply layer that I had there. So before I do anything else, I'm going to select both layers and use the selection tool on freehand select to clean that bit up. And then you can either use the transform tool to drag that off. What am I doing here? I'm lost. Okay. So you can either tap the transform tool and drag it off of the canvas, or you can use 3 fingers to rub in a circle, which will erase it. And it's still there. I don't know how that happened.
Tech gremlins.
Oh, maybe I only had one layer selected. Okay. You can't use the eraser tool with multiple layers selected. It only works on a single layer at a time, but the selection tool will work on multiple layers. If it's still a little too transparent, what you can do is duplicate the mask layer and then merge all of those together. As you duplicate it, though, you might end up getting more visibility of the white along the textured edges. So just something to keep in mind. You can see there it went down a little bit. Then with the layer mask enabled, I'm going to turn back on my canvas texture and the background color, and I'm going to pinch to merge my painting layer and my mask layer together. And then we can make this into the clip art. So that process is, again, selecting the layer contents, 3 fingers to swipe down, copy all, 3 fingers to swipe down, and paste. And drag it above.
People are loving your quick tips, by the way.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Kat just said Addie's a walking Procreate handbook. I agree. Like you've shared so many like on your social media, on your platforms. Amazing.
I love anything that makes painting easier and more accessible and faster. I really think the truth is that I'm super lazy. And so anything that makes things easier, less work, I'm into.
But the motivation behind it, we will take it because we love soaking up your tips.
Oh, I should show you quick how to export it. So you can export these all easily as layers individually. So what you'll want to do is delete anything extra. Otherwise, that will export too, and you'll just have extra nonsense files. So you can delete your canvas, and you might have to unlock it. Okay, and then delete any empty layers. I don't know if it makes a difference, but I tend to hide my background layer. Maybe that's just depending on what you export, but to ensure the transparency, I'm also going to delete my original painting layers. You don't necessarily have to do that if you plan to go back and make changes. So once you have the isolated layers that you want to export, tap the wrench, and under the share option, at the very bottom, there's this section of share layers. And if you tap PNG files, it will export these. And you can then save them. You can save them to your drive. You can airdrop them or save them to your iPad itself. And that's it. That's all I have.
Amazing. What a fantastic session. Thank you again. We cannot wait to welcome you back very soon, but really appreciate your time today. And I'll see you next time. And Addie, chat soon.